one of the reasons why. Never too late, because even with a 14-year-old, you've got a few more years before they even attend college. Getting the account open allows you to do a number of things. One, get some money in of your own. Two, and take a deduction. Most states do not have a time limit in which you can put the money in and take it out, but you want to check that with your state just to see. But you can certainly take a deduction if it's available in your state. Getting the account open is a wonderful signal to your child in terms of educating them that you believe in their future and you're doing something. Children learn by what they see, and doing it, I think there's a huge value, even if you don't save much, that you've done something. A myth is that they can only be used for college, four-year traditional college. Wrong. These accounts, the proceeds from these accounts can be used for two-year, four-year, trade and technical school, registered apprenticeships, graduate and professional studies, many forms of post-secondary education. And then as of July 5th, 2025, that tax reconciliation bill that we've all heard so much about, 529's got even better in that they've been expanded now to be useful for many forms of post-secondary, non-degree credentials. Individuals who have had 529 accounts opened for 15 years or more can or are eligible to roll up to $35,000 of remaining funds to a Roth IRA for the benefit of that original beneficiary, not for anyone else's benefit, not for the account owner's benefit, not for a sibling's benefit, only for the benefit of that exact named person on the 529. There are various rules around it, as there always is when you're getting a tax advantage, but it has to be a direct trustee-to-trustee rollover. Sometimes with retirement and such, you can take the money yourself and you've got 60 days to get it somewhere. No, this has to be direct trustee-to-trustee.
Welcome to Catching Up to FI, a podcast on mindset, money, and life for late starters of any age on their journey to financial independence. I'm Bill, and I'm a late starter.
I'm Jackie, and I'm also a late starter, and we're your host. We're here to help you on your journey to financial independence, no matter where you're starting.
We're going to talk to experts, other late starters, and explore topics related to our mission.
Join us as we catch up to FI together.
Hello, and welcome back to Catching Up to FI. I'm Bill Yount with my co-host, Jackie Cummins-Costi, who's wearing the podcast t-shirt today because we just got back from a podcast conference and learned a lot. Now, today, we want to know, are you broke? Can you pay for college for your kids? And how do you do it? And this is a complicated thing. And today we have an expert that's going to tell us it's not as complicated as you think. Everybody can do this. And we're going to talk about the vehicle called the 529 that gets us there.
That's right, Bill. Now, I want to also point this out. There are recent surveys that suggest that nearly 65% of Americans, they don't even know what a 529 plan is. And then we've got student loan debt that's hovering over $1.6 trillion. So those are some staggering stats. And that's why we brought on our guest today, Patricia Roberts. She has spent over 2 decades advancing her mission to educate and inspire families to have brighter outcomes when it comes to paying for higher education. She is the Chief Operating Officer at Gift of College, where she helps employees in offering financial wellness benefits for 529 plans, ABLE accounts, which is sort of a disability savings, that's a type of 529 plan, and also tax-free student loan assistance. So she's taken away the friction, but today we're going to focus on the 529s. Now, her personal experience as a first-generation college goer from a low-income single-parent household, that sounds familiar to me, which was touched by disability, she fuels her tireless efforts in helping American families address both the cost of higher education and disability. And in her favorite role of all, she is mom of a fairly recent debt-free college grad named Ben, for whom she saved for a 529 since he was an infant. And she's going to share all the tips on how she did that and give us the basics of 529 plans. So Patricia, welcome to Catching Up to FI.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here with you today talking about one of my favorite topics.
This is important to us too. We've recently had on Ron Lieber and other experts on how to get through a higher education or college education debt-free. Things have gotten really expensive. It's only getting more expensive. We have to start early to do this, and we need to use a vehicle like you espouse, the 529 plan. But before we dive into the specifics of it, why did you get so interested in this in the first place? It seems esoteric.
It certainly does. It feels like a very narrow topic, but one that I'm very familiar with. And I've got a close personal connection. As mentioned in the introduction, I grew up in a very low income, at times no income family, headed by a single mom, and I almost missed the opportunity to pursue college because of cost. In fact, my guidance counselor strongly suggested that I stick with the waitressing job that I had since 8th grade rather than pursue higher education because of the fragile state of my family. My mom would have nothing to do with that idea and insisted I go and we would find a way. And I did. I worked multiple jobs while attending my undergraduate institution and sent money home to help my mom and my brother who has a developmental disability. And I managed to get that undergraduate degree and later on a graduate degree while working full-time and going to school at night. So I'm a huge believer in the value of education because that education opened countless doors for me, which enabled me to lift myself and my family out of really tough circumstances. So you've got a fan of higher education. That's gotten me interested in the topic. You've got a borrower of student loans here in front of you. Those degrees were not free. And I didn't have the best of guidance about what type of school to pursue, where would I get the best financial aid? So I ended up borrowing a tremendous amount. And together with my son's father, we owed over $100,000 in student loan debt when he arrived in our arms in 1999. So I certainly have had the experience of repaying over 20 years a tremendous amount of debt. I've also had the joy of saving for my own son and helping to avoid that for him in a 529 plan account. Now, while you and many others were probably not that familiar with 529, I became familiar as an attorney at Citigroup years ago in the late 1990s, just as I was getting pregnant with my son, actually, and I was asked to learn about that section of the Internal Revenue Code so that Citi could get into that line of business of managing those assets. So I had the privilege of at least knowing these accounts existed. And once I knew, as a mom, weighed down by this debt, hoping desperately to avoid it for my son, I immediately got involved. As you said, Jackie, in the introduction, and I began saving the second I got back from maternity leave. A very small amount, I think it was $25 a paycheck, but I did it. And I did it because I was determined. I wanted something very different for my son than we had experienced. So that's the story. I know it's a little longer than you may have expected, but it goes way back to that childhood and way through to that career and then that debt-free graduation, which was a real source of joy.
Yeah, and you weren't wealthy, but you started with something. So kudos for that. And I think there's a lot of people in our audience that they're just getting started themselves, right? They're catching up to their own money shortcomings or whatever, but this is something that they can indeed infuse into what they're doing, and they don't have to have a ton of money to do it. So why don't we start with the basics? What is a 529 plan?
Sure, that's a great question. So first of all, it is named after Section 529 of the Internal Revenue Code. I know you and your listeners are familiar with other sections of the code like 401k, that's a section of the code, or 403b. So just another section of the Internal Revenue Code. These are a specific type of saving and investing account, mostly an investing account, we can talk about that, through which individuals contribute money for a very specific purpose, and that purpose is education. And until recently, it's been higher education that those accounts were exclusively for. There's been some enhancements that I hope we'll talk about on the K to 12 side. Regardless, so these are accounts, unlike other forms of savings and investing, where the earnings are not taxed while in the account. So when you've contributed your after-tax dollars to these accounts and they grow in value, those earnings are never taxed along the way. Many of us get those year-end tax statements for your bank savings account or your brokerage account. You've got to pay income tax on the earnings of those, not for 529. They're growing without tax deferred. And when those funds are withdrawn and used for a wide range of education experiences, which I hope we'll talk about well beyond traditional college, those earnings are never taxed. So that's what makes 529 special, is it's a tax advantaged way to plan for something. And even better, 37 states and the District of Columbia offer their residents an annual state tax benefit, which is either a credit or a deduction for investing in their child's future. And that makes it even more special. So that's sort of the nature of 529. It's a tax advantaged way to really earmark funds for a very particular purpose. I love the fact, there's another differentiator I want to be sure to stress. I love the fact that these accounts stay in the control of the account owner at all times. Unlike UGMA or UTMA accounts or other forms of trust accounts that are established for a young person, those young people get access when they've reached the age of majority, 18 or 21, to those types of funds. Not the case with 529. The account owner, whoever that may be, it doesn't have to be a parent, it doesn't have to be a grandparent, it could be a bonus mom or an aunt or uncle or even an unrelated person. Whoever owns it controls it. And I love it because we don't know what path our child's going to pursue when they've reached that age of majority. And it's nice to have the control over it, I think. So that's another factor that really makes 529 very easy. Low minimum deposits. You mentioned people can get started with very little. They can. In most states, $25 or even less can get you started. So I think these are wonderful reasons to at least consider these types of plans if you do have a future student in your life, or if you as an adult are thinking of pursuing some form of adult learning.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it sounds like it's a Roth IRA for education. It goes in post-tax, it grows tax-free, it comes out tax-free. And I had not heard of them in my young adult life. I don't know when they started. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the history or why they started, but it's not something I was aware of. And maybe our audience is too. It's become more popularized, but in many ways, this is an account that protects your retirement and helping your kids get educated debt-free. And that was a value of ours. And that was really important to give our young people a good start in life without the burden of debt. What is the history of these things? When did they start and why did they start?
Yeah, we're coming up on this year, the 30th anniversary of 529 plans. So 1996 was the year. My understanding was they were created so that really middle income families, I think, were probably the focus at the time, who wouldn't be eligible necessarily for financial aid and who certainly couldn't afford to pay necessarily out of pocket, out of earnings for education, would have a way to save on a tax advantaged basis. You talk about not being familiar with them, you're not alone. To this day, as Jackie said, some of the surveys say up to 65%, certainly more than 50%, don't know about these plans. And that's why I took the time during the pandemic, instead of baking sourdough bread, I decided, or whatever everyone else was doing during the pandemic, I said, I'm going to use this time, if not now, when, to write a book to educate individuals about it. And quite frankly, the statistics, I think I saw something from Vanguard recently reporting it's only 10 or 12% of American families that are leveraging these accounts. So even if the awareness is improving a bit, there's still really a lack of use. So I am on a mission as it sounds like you are as well, by inviting me and from your own experience to let people know these accounts exist.
Yeah, and Patricia, you mentioned your book. I have it right here. It's called Route 529. You lay out everything, and it was so helpful to read through it. And you briefly touched on the tax part. So I want to make sure we're clear on that, because sometimes that's confusing. So as far as contributions, there is no tax deduction or anything like that on a federal level through the IRS. However, state by state, it's going to vary. There are some tax deductions or credits. Can you explain to us how that works so people can think about their state and go see if their state offers some type of incentive to make these contributions to 529 plans?
Sure, absolutely. So you are absolutely correct at the federal level, no deduction. But at the state level, in many states, yes, there is a deduction or credit. Keep in mind, some states don't have personal income tax. There are states that are just excluded ordinarily. But 37 states and the District of Columbia offer something. And in my book, Route 529, in the appendix, you will see a listing of every state. My book is updated regularly. I've just updated it for 2025. There were so many changes last year. I'll update it again later this year. But I list off what every state offers, those that do offer something in terms of tax deductions. They all are quite different. You could have a state that's offering $1,000 per year. You could have a state that's offering, like my own here in New York, $10,000 per year for a married couple filing jointly. You can have some states, I believe South Carolina, West Virginia, that have unlimited state tax deductions. Other states, Virginia is, I think, $4,000 per beneficiary can be taken. Pennsylvania, my home state where I grew up, very generous. I think they're at $19,000 per taxpayer and per beneficiary as well. And Pennsylvania is one of 9 states that allow you to invest in any state's plan and still take the Pennsylvania tax deduction. I call these tax parity states. And you'll see in the index of my book that I identify for readers what those states are. And some states as well have sort of an unlimited rollover. So if you've taken the max that you could for a particular year and you've given more than that, in the subsequent years, you can continue to take it off. So you wind it down. A lot of complexity here, but I've tried my very best to make it as understandable as possible in my book and through interviews like this. I think people don't need to be intimidated because there's a lot of facts, but they need to understand as much as they can to really take advantage. You wouldn't want to miss out on a state tax deduction if you were eligible for one, unless, of course, there was another plan that sounded better to you for other reasons and you'd rather just forego the deduction and go with the other plan instead. Maybe it's got an investment option that your state plan does not have. One of the myths is that you have to invest in your own state's plan. You don't. It's a wonderful place to start. I advise everyone to do so because you don't want to miss out on anything. The state tax credit or deduction, you want to know about that. Some states offer seed money or matching dollars for certain reasons. You wouldn't want to miss that either. But again, if for some reason you prefer another state, you can go ahead and do that as well. And you can have multiple accounts for the same beneficiary. So you want to diversify a little bit, you can do that too.
It's interesting because I'm in Tennessee. Maybe Jackie can tell us about Ohio, but we have no state tax. So basically, there's no deduction available to me, and I have to look at plans, or I can look at the Tennessee plan, but then I can also look at what are the best plans in the country and invest in those. The thing that's confusing to me, is there a website that consolidates this information that people can go to look at their state and compare plans so they can figure out some of this complexity and figure out what's best for them?
Absolutely, there is. And by the way, Jackie's state of Ohio is one of the states Yes, 4,000 per beneficiary.
Yes, yes. And not only that, but we're also a parity state. And that's recent. And here's the funny thing, Patricia. Of course, the state of Ohio is not going to blast that as a headline saying that, ooh, now you can invest in any other state. It quietly happened. But now I already started with the Ohio plan, but it's just good to know that you're not stuck because we'll talk about this a little bit later, but not every 529 plan within each state is created equal. You've got some that are highly ranked, some that are not. Ohio is highly ranked, so I just stuck with that. And I think there's 8 parity states. I have them in front of me, so I'm going to go ahead and just mention them. So if you're in Arizona, Arkansas, Kansas, Maine, Minnesota, Missouri, Montana, New Mexico, Ohio, Pennsylvania, you can invest in other states' 529 plans and still get the deduction for your state, not to mention the tax-free states like Bill's, where they don't get a deduction or credit anyway, so of course they can go anywhere they want.
Right, that's right. And brilliant, the tax parity states. And yes, Ohio is the most recent one. You're up on the news, which is great. And certainly a very good plan. I can understand the states not wanting to broadcast that. I think it keeps everybody on their toes when consumers have different options, and it is just a policy matter. Some states feel like they want to get their people educated. They're not necessarily concerned with how they do it. They want to still give them the deduction. Others feel strongly their plan is best. And if they're going to give a deduction or a credit, they want it to be in their plan, a plan that they oversee and monitor. So you can see both sides of that. Bill asked a very good question about how do you make sense of this? And there are a couple of ways. First of all, on my company's website, giftofcollege.com, when you look at 529 plans, we have gift cards and other things on our site. But if you go to the 529 plan there's a map, a state map, and you can compare up to 3 states at the same time there. You'll see the fees and expenses, who's the investment manager, contribution limits, things like that. That's one place. There's another place that many people go because they rate the plans. My company's not rating the plans. We're offering objective information about them straight from the websites from those 529 plans. But there's a website called savingforcollege.com. You may know of it. And they do ratings of the 529 plans based on various criteria. They don't give star ratings. They give mortarboard graduation cap ratings, which is cute. So you could get a 4.5 cap rating or a 5 cap rating. That is one place to go. Also, Morningstar rates the 529 plans. People have mixed feelings about these different forms of ratings, but worth looking into. Morningstar gives gold, silver, bronze, neutral. I think they even rate some plans negative, although I don't know that they have done that recently. But you can see what those ratings are, different criteria than savingforcollege.com, and take a look. And certainly, you do not need a financial advisor to open a 529 plan. But if you have one, it would be brilliant to have that person weigh in on what you're doing. If they're looking at your total financial picture, other aspects of your financial life, goals that you have, retirement, etc., why would you leave out something so substantial? Let them weigh in for you. If you're compensating them in any way, or they've gotten to know you and your family, ask them which plan would they recommend and see what they have to say as well. That's another way. But again, most consumers go it on their own. They're not using a financial advisor. But I think it's a miss. If you have someone advising you, why not ask them their opinion? They may have one. You may not agree with it, but you can certainly hear what they have to say if they're an experienced individual.
What's interesting to me is they're pretty state-centric. Did they start that way? And why do states manage these? Did they farm them out? Are there private plans? Why did it originate this way? Why has it stayed this way? And are there plans where you can say, you know what, I don't want to go with the state. I want to go with, say, Fidelity or Vanguard's plan?
Yeah, so the states have always been involved from the very beginning. I can't recite the history of what happened there, but there is a history that I can share with you after the fact. I want to make sure I've got it straight before I share it on your podcast. Regardless, they have been involved from the start. And every state except for Wyoming has a 529 plan, at least one. Some have more than one. Why more than one? Some have a direct-to-consumer plan and an advisor plan. Others have a couple of different investment managers in their plans. So they're running a couple different plans that the state oversees, but with different investment management firms. Now, how do the states run these plans? They are responsible. These are municipal fund securities. They have state oversight. Each and every 529 plan has a state overseeing the operation of the program. Most states, not all, they put an RFP out and they hire firms like Fidelity, Vanguard, Franklin Templeton, Capital Research, American Funds as they're called, to run their investment side of the plan for them and to help with, in some cases, the marketing of the plan nationally and through financial advisors and then locally as well. A couple of states do a really good job of managing the money themselves. Think about it. States manage money all the time. They manage pension money, all right? Other aspects. It's the state treasurer's office in most cases. Utah, my 529, consistently ranked one of the best plans. If you go look at the places we talked about, they are running their own oversight from an investment standpoint. And there's a couple of other states that do that as well. They decided not to find an outside manager to manage it and oversee, but rather to do it themselves. But the states ultimately are responsible. There is one privately run 529. It is a 529 prepaid plan. We haven't talked about that. Today we're talking more generally. My book is about 529 college savings plans, the plans where you can invest in any state's program. You can use it anywhere across the country, in some cases across the world. There's something called a prepaid tuition plan under Section 529 that 7 or 8 states, if you've got my book handy, Jackie, it's in there. Florida's a big one. Texas is a big one. Florida prepaid plan. Those plans allow individuals to buy tomorrow's tuition at today's prices. It's not an investment. It's more of a contract. And in that case, there is one private entity that is running a prepaid tuition plan and was allowed to do it. And I have to remember the name of it, but it was called until recently the Private College Prepaid Tuition Program. They've changed their name just recently. I can look that up and get it to you after the fact. But the Private College Prepaid Tuition Program was a consortium of about 250 to 300 colleges who came together and said, we'll let people buy tomorrow's tuition at today's prices and use those credits at our universities when their time comes. If you knew your child was likely to go to a private college, say you went to a particular school and you think your child's going to be up to attending that school or it's some family tradition and you want to buy into something like that, some people have done that. Again, it's for tuition only. So you're still going to want to maybe complement it with a 529 college savings plan that can cover all the other costs, books and supplies, computers, housing, right? That's not tuition. That's something different. But there is one private entity doing it. And I will get back to you on the history. It's been well written up about why the states, but boy, are they involved very much in every instance, other than that one private college 529 prepaid plan.
Yeah. So Patricia, it sounds like if someone's ready to say, okay, even if I don't have a ton of money, I want to get started with a 529 plan. The first thing that they want to do is check with their state. Their state could possibly have multiple plans, but if they're a do-it-yourselfer, they would go to the direct plan. If they want to use an advisor, sometimes that's an option. They may even have the option to look outside their state. So the first thing is what are their caveats for their particular state? Is there a deduction? Is there a credit? Things like that. And I'm wondering if we talked about the state tax benefit. I think sometimes people get discouraged. Let's say if their kid is 14, they're like, my kid is about ready to start college. I have nothing saved now. What do I do? And they feel like the 529 is not even an option. But what if they made their state offered a deduction or credit? Would it be a smart thing to put the money in a 529, turn around and pay tuition or immediately do it? Like, is there a time limit that the money has to sit in there? Can they at least maybe take advantage of the state credit or deduction even if they're not going to need to invest it because they have only a short period of time?
Such a good question. Yes. And I want families to know we as parents have a lot on our plates, and everyone should give themselves a break in terms of any stress around or any guilt around not starting sooner. What's wonderful is that people are even thinking of doing something at a late stage. I believe it's never too early to start. We can talk about the fact that people can even open an account when the child hasn't yet arrived and then switch the Benny to their name. But I also feel it's never too late. And you've raised one of the reasons why. Never too late, because even with a 14-year-old, you've got a few more years before they even attend college. Getting the account open allows you to do a number of things. One, get some money in of your own. Two, and take a deduction. Most states do not have a time limit in which you can put the money in and take it out, but you want to check that with your state just to see. But you can certainly take a deduction if it's available in your state. Getting the account open is a wonderful signal to your child in terms of educating them that you believe in their future and you're doing something. Children learn by what they see, and doing it, I think there's a huge value, even if you don't save much, that you've done something. Another thing about getting the account open is you've opened the possibility of friends and extended family stopping the nonsense gifts or the gifts that are of less value for every birthday, holiday, special occasion, milestone. You can now say, thank you for all of that. We have enough, in a polite way, and say, would you like to join us on our college savings journey? So-and-so is hoping to attend some form of higher education. We've opened this account. Would you like to contribute to that instead? Or maybe get a smaller gift, a more traditional gift, and contribute. And then the other thing by getting the account open, we've got a growing number of employers who are offering 529 benefits. You get your account open, you're now eligible. If your employer is offering some kind of contribution or match, you're eligible for that as well. So why not get it open? And then let's keep in mind, in your case, with the example of a 14-year-old, maybe it's 4 years or so until that higher education, that high school graduation, but that child's going to be in school a while longer, right? A lot of kids are taking more than 4 years to graduate, 5 years, 6 years in some cases. Having the account open certainly allows you lots of possibilities and sends a wonderful message. There's research that shows children, particularly from low and moderate income families, when they know that someone's saving for them, even amounts less than $500. That statistic and that source is in my book. They are 3 times more likely to pursue higher education and 4 times more likely to complete it. They've got a different sense of themselves because they're feeling that people believe in them. So that's another reason to get that account open, no matter where you are. And pat yourself on the back for doing it, no matter what stage you're at.
Honestly, I didn't know about these. And when you start your first job and you have your work 401k, that's a good time for parents to educate them that open that account now. Mm-hmm. Open an account, maybe companies could tell us this, and you may not fund it right away, and you may have kids in your future 10, 15 years down the road, but you could potentially start saving for those future kids if you want a family like that. You make yourself the beneficiary and you change it when the kid arrives because you need a social security number. Jackie's doing some of this for her new grandchild. So you can start it early in life and fund it, trickle in funds, and compounding works for you, and you don't need to have the kid to do so. I didn't know that. I am so excited to announce our new partnership at Catching Up to Fi with MONARCH. MONARCH is a comprehensive financial tool to monitor your financial health and life. I have been using MONARCH for 3 years to track my spending, net worth, budget, savings goals, and more. I am not a spreadsheet nerd, and without MONARCH's robust, intuitive tools and user interface, this process would have seemed impossible. I was recently also able to seamlessly share my data with our new flat fee financial planner for a retirement readiness checkup when I turned 60. He uses MONARCH with all of his clients. After our analysis, I was shocked to find out that we were financially independent 3 years before I thought we would be. You can't manage what you don't measure. Using MONARCH was critical in this review and planning process and remains important in monitoring my ongoing financial health. Thanks to Monarch, all of our podcast listeners and community members have access to a 50% discount off their first year subscription. Simply follow the link below and use the discount code CATCHINGUP50 at checkout. I am proud to say that my sons are the first to use the code to join the Monarch family. I encourage you to share this link and code with family and friends who need or want to take back their money and grow their wealth. And then as far as your comments about hacking this with, let's change from a consumption society where we're giving stuff as gifts. Let's look at how do we fund real value and grow our money. There's this app I learned about called Backer, and you can connect your accounts wherever they are to Backer, and it makes it really easy to get everybody like a team sport. This is a family team sport where, look, we've got this and we'll send you this link and you can trickle whatever money you want in there. And in your retirement, why not give while living? I've engaged relatives and say, you know what? For our kids, you can give now. This is really cool. This is a lifetime account. It's not a focal account that you're just using for one kid's college education.
That's exactly right. And I know about Backer. I know the founder. He's involved with savingforcollege.com, by the way. And I'm familiar with that site. My company's site does the same thing, giftofcollege.com. We have a way for people to set up profiles and to share them and their goals with others through a simple to use link. We also have gift cards. You may or may not know. You may have heard me talk about these. These are available online and through retail. They are in denominations of $25 to $200. Some retailers are allowing them up to $500. It really depends on the retailers, but CVS, HEB down in Texas, Save Mart. This is good if you don't want to ask for an invitation to contribute. You want to just give it at a baby shower, a birthday party. Then the recipient redeems it themselves into whatever plan they're in. But tools like Backer, tools like savingforcollege.com, I'm sure there are others out there as well. Gift cards and otherwise are a great way to get that circle of support. And I bet those conversations are going to be good among those contributors and with that future student. I think it opens the door for what are you thinking of doing, even at different ages, right? What are your interests? What impact do you want to have on the world? I think when people are saving, you have much more of a conversation than you hand over the toy or the new outfit, right? Not much to be said about that. Maybe you'll hear that they wore it once or twice or played with it. But this is a real conversation that can go on for years by having everybody give a little bit towards it. I bet there's less buyer's remorse when you're given towards something like this. And I love that you're doing that, Bill. I love that you found a tool that's working for you and your family. That's wonderful.
So, Patricia, one of the questions that come up a lot, especially with late starters, is, okay, I have to save for my own retirement, but I also want to help my kid to not have student loans and to get through college and help them pay for it. I'd like to hear your perspective on how parents should look at trying to balance taking care of their own retirement versus taking care of their kids' college.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got an ER doctor who probably knows about triage and goals. I think that's an admirable thing for parents to be thinking about because your own future certainly matters and the child's future does as well. I think they're extremely interconnected, and I don't know that there's any one right answer, but what I do know is putting your own oxygen mask on first, as they say on the planes, before assisting others is a good idea. I would say, to the extent one can, get started saving for retirement, particularly if your employer's matching in some way. I think you'd be remiss to be ignoring that and just focusing on college savings. So get yourself started for retirement, contribute what you can, get whatever you can get from the employer if they're matching or contributing in some way, and then turn your attention to your child. And even if you can't contribute much, just like we talked about a few minutes ago, get the account open. Don't wait until you're secure with what you're doing for retirement to get it open. Start before you're ready. Get that account opened and even put a little at a time in it, and then invite others, as Bill has, to contribute as well. I would say failing to save for retirement can ultimately cause harm, certainly to the parents themselves and to their children, because they may become dependent on that child in the long run if they overweighted their investments just for the child. I think the reverse is true too. Failing to save for college when you've wanted to help your child in some way, if you're so inclined, some parents aren't, most are, is a problem, because if you don't save at all and your child wants to go, many parents start pulling money from their retirement account to make that happen. Bad idea. Penalties, right? Lost opportunities there. Other parents start taking equity lines of credit on their home and doing things that are not healthy in the long run for themselves. So while there's no one right answer here, in my view, I think the general thinking is start with yourself in mind. You must be in a fairly stable position, but even get that account open for the child before you're fully able to fund it, and at least start the practice of doing something. It's a tough balancing act, but I don't think you can focus on one or the other exclusively. I think that's a bad idea.
Yeah, and I always like to say we're a nation of multitaskers, so we can do more than one thing at a time. It's just how much are we going to put towards each of them at a given time. And when you were saying at least get the account open, we're going to talk in a little bit about all the different uses for a 529 plan, and even if you don't use it all, what you can do that will make that point very important. I just know that's something that goes through a lot of people's heads, so I appreciate you diving into that a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah, Patricia, it's people think that 529 is kind of a black hole. You put the money in there and it's locked up just for education. But there's a lot of different ways to use this money. Let's go through them, because even recently with recent legislation, there's a lot of opportunity here that people don't realize for this tax-free growth of money coming out tax-free for education. Tell us about the breadth of the uses of a 529.
Sure. I don't want to forget to talk about K through 12. Remind me if I don't, but I do want to talk about post-secondary first, because I think that's where we generally focus on these accounts. So a myth is that they can only be used for college, four-year traditional college. Wrong. These accounts, the proceeds from these accounts, can be used for 2-year, 4-year trade and technical school, registered apprenticeships, graduate and professional studies, many forms of post-secondary education. And then as of July 5th, 2025, that tax reconciliation bill that we've all heard so much about, 529s got even better in that they've been expanded now to be useful for many forms of post-secondary non-degree credentials. So these are credentials that don't necessarily lead to a degree, but lead to many forms of careers. So these are, what can you use them for? Training and education that will lead to a state or federal license of some sort of licensed profession. We can probably think of many ourselves. Education that will lead to nationally recognized certification. So this isn't like Johnny's soft serve teaching you how to do a ice cream cone. These are forms of education that are nationally recognized and certified by certain certification entities that are listed in this HR1 bill. Also, continuing education as well, and other credentials. Some examples I can give you: airplane mechanics, HVAC repair persons, dental hygienists, truck drivers, many forms of education where you need a license, you need training, and you need probably continuing education. And 529s now can help you to pursue, so the cost of the training, obtain, that's the cost of the testing and the test prep, and maintain, that's the continuing education element for many forms of careers. Some of this is still being ironed out. There's no one list where you can go right now to find out in your state for sure is this covered, but you can certainly look at what are licensed professions in your state and take a look at those. And there's some other criteria I can send you that you could put in the show notes, but it's a lot more than college. These are great careers. And these are careers, I recently read an article that really are deemed, many of them, AI proof. I'm not sure that you've got somebody doing your dental hygienist stuff that's not a person, right? Some of these things, maybe you'll have someone driving a truck and unloading it. I'm not sure. But these are professions that are not college related, but that can be very lucrative. These are jobs that can be obtained probably right out of the education if you've been trained properly. Many involve apprenticeships, etc. And we can talk then about the K to 12 if you want to, and we can also talk about other uses for 529s that may be surprising, such as student loan repayment.
Yeah, I think it's so important to acknowledge of all of these things that it covered. And I put it through the test when the law changed in 2025. I actually used some 529 funds to cover my CFP renewal. That's my certification, which was $575. Yeah. And aside from recognizing that it doesn't have to be a traditional college, that's why we refer to these now as 529 plans. We used to call them college savings. It's not just for college anymore. So also, what about like tools, equipments, and things like that? If you need a computer for school, if there's other like lab fees and things like that. So not just tuition, right? It's other stuff as well. Can you go through some of those as examples?
Yeah, absolutely. So when pursuing any of these approved forms of education, the costs associated with the pursuit is covered. So certainly if you need a computer to do your work and you're primarily using it for the schooling, absolutely covered. We had that added to Section 529 a number of years ago. It took us a while. We did. Books, supplies, equipment, fees and expenses, absolutely. Whatever's required for the course of study. So whatever it may be, you're in an apprenticeship, you need a uniform, you need your, different forms of supplies, mechanic supplies, whatever they are. You're in a graphic design course, they're asking you to get certain types of pens and whatever. Those things are covered because they're associated with what you're pursuing.
Would housing be one of them?
Housing, yes. Housing is an incredible cost. I do want to encourage those who are worried about the cost of higher education to always consider the possibility, at least for a year or two, of living at home and commuting if cost is really a worry and you don't want to go into substantial debt. But many, or maybe even most students, do decide to live on campus or off near the university where they're attending or whatever the school is. And those costs are covered. On campus, they call it room and board. It's within the cost of attendance on the school's website, fully covered by 529 if attending at least half-time. So you can't be just dabbling and taking one course and deciding to live nearby and pay for your expenses. You've got to be a half-time student. That's the only rule there. But you can live off campus as well. And from my own experience with my son going to college, it was actually cheaper for him that junior year and through his graduate degree when he lived off campus. It was less expensive for us. So that's something families might want to consider. Can you spend any amount off campus? No. You can spend up to the amount that's listed in the cost of attendance for that school on their website. So it's the actual amount you spend up to that amount that can be deducted. So we're not saying you can go buy a $500,000 condo and deduct that amount if your child's living in it, but you can deduct what the child would have spent on campus if indeed you did spend it. And what you do in that case is keep the receipts. 529 plans are self-substantiating. You're not turning in your receipts to get your money out. You're keeping them yourself. And I always advise people, to the extent you can with your young person, to get them to send you those receipts or put them all on one credit card or one debit card so that you can see, particularly those off-campus expenses. So when my son was saying, I paid the rent this month and Jeremy paid the electric and the other boy paid the gas bill and I Venmo'd him my third of it, I'm like, oh, where are the receipts? Let's go ahead to the extent you can. I had a copy of my son's lease. I had a record to the extent I could. They'll be going to grocery stores when they're off campus, right? So try to keep some of those receipts. I haven't heard of a lot of instances of 529 auditing, but you want to do the best you can to have a record. But I love that you can live off campus. You can even live at home. And if you're attending half-time, you can take the cost. If your parents can help to estimate what's that cost of that bedroom you're in and the food you're eating at home, you can also use the money in that way too. A lot of flexibility.
You wanted to talk about K through 12, and I wanted to bring you back to that.
I do want to talk about K through 12. So people are surprised, as they once called them college savings plans, now 529 plans. Jackie, that's brilliant. Just knock that word out because it's more general now. K to 12 is a qualified expense as well at the federal level. And I'm saying that because there's a number of states that don't conform automatically to federal law in general. So there are some states that feel differently about this on the 529 plan level. So you'll want to check with your state to make sure they're in conformity. I cover this in my book as well. But generally, K to 12 tuition up until recently, now it's double the amount, but up until the 1st of this year, actually, you could take $10,000 out of your 529 and use it for K to 12 tuition. That's typically a private school, a religious school. I don't know how many public or magnet schools charge tuition, but whatever the tuition is that's charged, you could have used $10,000. Now it's $20,000 as of the 1st of January, 2026. Also, what's different, as of July 5th of last year with the HR 1 bill, parents or account owners, whoever they may be, and again, they don't have to be the parent, can use money for the following K to 12 expenses as well. They can use money for tutoring outside of the home. So this isn't Aunt Sally who's good with algebra coming over and sitting at your dining room table and you decide to slip her some cash and take it out of your 529. This is real tutoring outside of the home, but that's now covered, which I think is great. Forms of therapy are covered. Occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy that children may well need are also covered. Test prep for those standardized tests covered. The cost of taking the test covered. I remember barely having enough money to take the SAT. There's a fee associated with that. Now that can come out of the 529 plan. And even more exciting is dual enrollment high school, college classes. Those sometimes come at a cost, but they give you credits. So I think all of the things I've just mentioned, the tutoring, the test prep, the therapies that a child may need, the dual enrollment, I think all of those expenses coming out of a 529 plan may make a child more confident and maybe even more qualified for higher education and maybe even more likely to get a scholarship. I know some people question, why would you use a college savings account for something like that? But if it makes the child more confident, maybe a child with a speech impairment or a child that's having trouble with a particular course, they might just be better prepared for college or whatever that career and academic journey is out after the fact by having their parents been able to take a little money out and pay for it. So I'm a fan of all of these enhancements. I'm very happy that they're there. I know they're perplexing to some people as to why they would exist, but I also think grandparents in some cases who couldn't put their own children through education for whatever reason and are now caught up to FI and they've got some money on their hands, they may just be setting up 529 accounts because they can. A child can have multiple accounts from multiple people, and they may be helping their adult children pay for that primary or secondary education out of a 529. That's quite possible. I'm not sure exactly who's using it for that purpose, but I bet you there are some grandparents who are willing to help.
Yeah, I'm a future grandparent that's already doing that too.
Yeah.
I know Jackie's doing it. Before we get too far here, now 529 plans, you're dumping post-tax dollars in there. Now, you don't want to save just in cash. They are investment vehicles, and all different plans have all different styles. Can you tell us a little bit about what you got to watch out for, how you invest, and when you may potentially de-risk this so you can pay? What are the strategies from an investment standpoint in the 529?
Sure. And of course, with anything I've said today, definitely my own personal opinion, meant to be education, not investment advice or tax advice. Everyone's situation is different. I don't know your listeners. I don't even know you well enough for certain to know what to say. But what I will say in terms of a general education on what's offered is, yeah, these are once called college savings accounts. They're really not savings accounts. They're more so investing accounts. What do people need to know? Whether they're going it alone or they're working with a financial intermediary, they need to understand their investment objective. What are they saving for? What are they attempting to do? Are they attempting to cover a third of a child's potential public school college tuition, or they are attempting to cover all of it? Are they looking for graduate studies? Are they just wanting to do whatever they can? I think the objective matters as you're getting started. Your time horizon definitely matters, because Jackie gave a great example of somebody with a 14-year-old. 14-year-old, what investment option they might go in would be quite different than an infant, like your new grandchild, right? So you need to know your time horizon as well. And then you need to know something about your own tolerance for risk, because these accounts are primarily investment accounts subject to market volatility. So I would keep those factors in mind. What's great is, that may sound overwhelming that you need to figure all this out, but what's great is most of the 529 plan websites, and certainly financial advisors can help you with this, but have calculators and tools to help you assess your risk tolerance, help you to figure out what might you need for this or that type of school in this or that many years. And I think those tools can be helpful, because you can't really get to a destination if you don't know what it is or where you're starting. You need to know where you're at to begin with. Now, what are the investments that are offered? Typically in the 529 plans, the most popular ones are ones you'll know of if you're familiar with retirement account, because these are age-based or target date funds. Target date with retirement is, when do you anticipate retiring? Target date for 529 is, when do you anticipate this beneficiary, this future student, needing the funds? Now that you can use 529s for K to 12, it gets a little more complicated, right? Are you thinking you're going to need the funds? They're an infant and you're going to need it for kindergarten? That's 5 years. Or are you thinking you're going to need the funds really for college in 18 years? But the 529 plans have these professionally designed and managed portfolios that will help you to figure this out. For someone who's an infant that's going to be using it for college someday, these are more heavily invested in equities. Over time, they become more conservative in design. And as one nears that date, that target date of needing to use the funds, they're considerably more conservative. Every state plan, every investment manager does it slightly differently. There could be a higher level of equity in the end with one plan versus another. They could start off a little bit differently, but the theme is they become more conservative over time. I think about 65% of investors go with that. They go with something that's prepackaged based on the age of their Benny and when they think they're going to use the funds. There are also static portfolios that are risk tolerance based. They're aggressive, conservative, or moderate. The design of those plans, they're not changing as the child ages. It's a portfolio that is just that. And you can have multiple options. You could put 25% of your account in age-based, 25% in moderate. And there are also individual fund portfolios. Some of the plans have something where you can design yourself if you're so inclined and make a mix of portfolios that are mutual fund type investments and design it yourself. And then beyond that, there are stable value options within some of the 529 plans, which are thought to be smoother in terms of volatility. And there are, in a few plans, not all, not even close to all, FDIC insured options. Those are for the person who doesn't want to lose a thing and isn't worried about growth. Those are in there as well. And again, you can change twice a year in a 529 plan your existing investment design, and you can always change it for future funds that you put in. From my own personal experience, I did the age-based moderate, seemed right for our family. Until my son got to about 15, I started thinking, wait a minute, I've been through 2000, 2001, volatility through 2008. I don't want to risk anything. I'm going to take 25% off the table within the 529 plan and move it to a money market type account. Portfolio within the program. That made me feel comfortable. I left 75% in his age base, but I just wanted to know, I'd rather risk the gain and have the peace of mind of knowing that was going to be there. So you can change it up along the way. But what I would say is look at the plan's websites. They do a great job of describing. They've got to show you past performance. although Jackie and Bill, the past performance isn't
Right.
necessarily indicative of the future, but you will see how the portfolios have performed over time. And that should give you some idea.
Yeah, so there's lots of options in there. Think about your retirement or your 401k. It's going to give you a menu of options and you can determine what best fits how you plan on using that money. Typically, the higher ranked 529 plans, they have low cost index funds, typically like Vanguard or Schwab or something like that. So I appreciate you doing that. Just a quick technical question. So for the K through 12 that you were mentioning, now you can do up to $20,000 a year for that. No, is that per year or is that $20,000 total for the K through 12?
No, it's per year. And that's at the federal level. And while I don't want to say most of the states, I think there may be 8 or 10 out there that are still not conforming to that. Either their enabling legislation for 529 hasn't caught up because the words in their enabling legislation say higher education, or as a matter of policy, they're just like, we're not so sure we want people using it. So check with your state. Yes, you can use it at the federal level, and the state can't preclude you. It's just that it's possible if you're in a state that doesn't align with the federal law and they know or they learn that you've used it for K to 12, you may have to pay state tax only on the earnings portion of the withdrawal. So I think it's unlikely that this all surfaces, but I do want to, just in the interest of full disclosure, say that. But yeah, $20,000 a year. The one use of 529 that's not per year, it is over the life of the account. I might as well mention it is student loan repayment. $10,000 over the life of the account. You can use your 529 for that. For the beneficiary student loan repayment or a sibling of the beneficiary. Those are two uses that people don't realize. Another thing that confuses people, why are you using 529 to repay a student loan? We hear from parents sometimes that they have their children take out loans to have some skin in the game, and then they hold back on the 529 a little bit because they know they can help them repay should they want to, should they have done well in college, etc. So that may be a reason that 529 is eligible for student loan repayment. I don't hear much about it, but it is a use that I didn't want to fail to mention.
There's a couple of things I wanted to touch on too with regards to the investment things. Now, you got to look at costs because some of these plans do cost a lot, and it's like your 401k. You don't necessarily want to lose to the costs. And the thing you can do is take your state tax deduction in one plan if your state's plan is not good, but you can have another plan in another state where they have better investment choices and lower costs potentially. Isn't that correct?
That is absolutely correct. And individuals, and I even did this too, sometimes put up to the maximum that their state allows for the deduction if they really want to get it, provided it's a well-performing, fairly priced plan, but get their state tax deduction, and anything extra, they put in another state's plan because they can do it. So they don't forego the state tax deduction. And again, that's a brilliant point to mention. If you're in a highly priced plan and you're getting a rather modest tax deduction, one's going to outweigh the other. It might make more sense. And tools like savingforcollege.com, I think, take this into account if you start using their calculators. Morningstar may address it as well. But that's a really good point. I think the fees and expenses have come down a lot with 529 plans through the years, but definitely worth noting because you don't want whatever benefit you think you're getting to be eaten up with fees and expenses.
And there's one more thing I want to make sure people understand is these can be looked at as, in some ways, retirement plans or jump-starting a 20-year-old. When they get through college, you've paid for college, you have extra funds there, they can roll over and grow. But at 15 years, there's something special you can do to help your kids boost retirement savings. What's that we can do?
Yeah, that's great. As of 1/1/2024, individuals who have had 529 accounts opened for 15 years or more can or are eligible to roll up to $35,000 of remaining funds to a Roth IRA for the benefit of that original beneficiary, not for anyone else's benefit, not for the account owner's benefit, not for a sibling's benefit, only for the benefit of that exact named person on the 529. There are various rules around it, as there always is when you're getting a tax advantage, but it has to be a direct trustee-to-trustee rollover. Sometimes with retirement and such, you can take the money yourself and you've got 60 days to get it somewhere. No, this has to be direct trustee to trustee. You must follow the Roth rules on the receiving end, right? Roth doesn't allow you to put $35,000 in any one year. I think it's $700 or $7,500 at this point based on the age of the beneficiary, maybe income. So you'd have to do it over time, but you've got to follow the Roth rules. And if Roth requires that there's earned income on behalf of that person, then there must also be earned income. So you're getting it out of the 529. You've got to follow the Roth rules, but you can, over time, if all the other conditions are met, get $35,000 out of the 529 and roll it over to the Roth for the benefit of that child. And I love it. I love that. I think it's such a great additional way to think of things, right?
Yeah, I love that too. And I think that was a game changer for a lot of people that were concerned. Okay, what if my kid gets a scholarship and I have the money left over? I don't want to be penalized and have to pay taxes and all of that. And now this is a pretty viable option for a lot of people. You can certainly change the beneficiary and things like that, but this one is very attractive for a lot of people. Patricia, I want to make sure we covered everything that you think is important in a 529 conversations. Did we do that, or is there still any other big topics that are lingering that we really want to make sure? Let's let Patricia go. What else have we missed?
I would say in terms of best practices, we've covered a lot, and I have to compliment both of you. You're so knowledgeable, and I hope my book helped a little bit to add some additional knowledge. I think in terms of best practice, start as soon as you can. Don't beat yourself up about where you are, but do something, right? You've got to do something if you're so inclined. 529 is not the only way to save, but if you're interested in what we've talked about today, get started. I think the other best practice is when you do get started, automate the contributions. You know it, I know it. If you have to keep considering it every time, whether you're going to do it or not, no, automate it. Send it directly from your paycheck to the 529 plan. 75% more. Employees save 75% more when it's coming out of their paycheck because it doesn't first cross their hands. I would say the second best way to do it is direct from your checking or bank savings account. Another thing I would say is to make certain that you have separate accounts for each child. This comes up all the time. People think they can just pull it all together. It seems to make sense in some way, and they'll pull it out whenever they need it for each of 3 kids. No, your withdrawals have to be aligned to that named beneficiary. You can only name one beneficiary per account. There are other reasons you don't want to combine funds for various children. One, unless they're twins or triplets, they have different time horizons. They have different dates of birth, and they're going to be going to college at a different time. Their investment strategy will be different or may be different. So don't mix it up. Have each child have an account. Another reason you want to do that, so that friends and family can put money in for special occasions into a specific account. And another reason you want to have it is, I want you showing your children that you are saving for them. And there's a wonderful way to do it by showing them a statement that has their name listed as the beneficiary. Up to parents how much they want to share about how much they've saved. But to show a child, I think, is incredibly important. And then as another best practice, we talked about it. Get your friends and family involved. Don't be shy. Be honest. We don't need another X, but we really need is some help with this. And I think people will do it. And then ask your employer. Ask your employer, please, can they bring 529 education in? Can they help you with payroll deduction, setting that up? And can they help by matching? I think that's another thing. And the last thing I would say is, people are inclined to set these and forget them. Don't do it. Don't do it. Things change over time. Take a look at your accounts, any investment account you have, even if you're doing it annually and you're doing it on your own. See how it's doing. See if it still feels right to you. Are your objectives the same? Is your risk tolerance the same? Do you now have a budding dentist on your hands and you've got to save more? Are you learning that something's going to be quite different in terms of your earnings or your ability to help out in the future? So pay attention to those investments. Don't just leave them there. Keep an eye on them. I think that's an important practice. And those are the things I would say.
You know, I know we're a little bit over time, but there's one aspect of these that for our fire people, for our folks that have achieved that, and or grandparents who have the wealth, and giving becomes an important facet of their lives to, say, the grandkids. How much can you contribute to these accounts? How can you hack them to create generational wealth and create, honestly, an engine that continues for generations to help not only kids, but grandkids and great grandkids pay for their educations, because the cost is only going up. And this, to me, was the biggest hack, that you don't need to worry about emptying the account. You could just carry it forward, and you can do things like front load it too.
Yeah, yeah. And really, congratulations to anybody who's in that situation, who's finally become financially independent and in a position to do this. It's probably one of the greatest gifts you can give, is to make certain that those you love will be able to follow their dreams, whatever they may be, without the crushing weight of student loan debt. What can you contribute? The gifting rules are $19,000 a year ordinarily, but there's a 5-year accelerated gifting provision under Section 529 of the Internal Revenue Code. So an individual can give in any year 19,000 times 5. So what's that? 95,000. And if you're a married couple filing jointly, you could double it. So that would be married grandparents that have the resources could really contribute up to $190,000. That money is moved out of their taxable estate into the 529 plan for a particular beneficiary. And that's per beneficiary, by the way. So what to know about that? If you do something like that, the next 4 years, you can't contribute anything more as a gift to that particular beneficiary. Not in any form, not in the 529, not elsewhere. You've really used up your gifting allowance, but that's okay. That money's growing. That's terrific. So what else do you need to know about it? No, just that it's a terrific provision. And you don't have to do the full 19,000 times 5. You could do something more than 19,000 that sits well with you up into that $95,000 mark. And yes, you can keep 529 funds in the account indefinitely. I like that. I like that in the event the child gets a scholarship, even if you're not a wealthy family or you're not a grandparent in this financially independent mode, knowing that you can keep it there maybe for your child's children someday because they don't need it or they didn't want it, is a very wonderful thing to do. So I'm all for individuals who are able. That's not the typical account owner, but there are some who want to do this for their grandchildren. There are these provisions that make it possible. And I like that about 529.
The reason I think about this is because there is a huge amount of boomer generational wealth that may come in a lump sum at the end of their lives to you. And when you get a windfall or any windfall, this is an option how to treat that windfall. It may not necessarily come from you or in small amounts. If you don't need that windfall money, then let's fund education for people. And the 529 is a great place to put at least part of that windfall.
Yeah, I love that. Any windfall. And that was a best practice I didn't mention, but whenever money comes your way, whether it's through an inheritance, whether it's a bonus, whether it's a tax refund, whether it's because your child's finally out of diapers and you're saving $60 or $80 a month as a result, you don't need those diapering supplies or they're out of daycare, get the money or at least part of it into the 529. I love that you're suggesting that. Even the required minimum distributions from retirement accounts. If you don't need it, put it into the 529 for someone you love.
That is exactly the conversation I've had with, it opens up the conversation to this generation that may have hoarded a little bit, may have been scarcity mindseted and held on to it because I need it for long-term care. But at a certain point in your no-go years, you're watching your portfolio grow to the moon, and why not give it while alive? And it's a great conversation with grandparents, aunts, and uncles. I opened it by saying, do you think we're in your estate plan? And if they say yes, okay, great. Do you think it would jeopardize your independence, your retirement, to give to your grandkids, for example? Great. If it doesn't, awesome. We can do this. We can transfer wealth to them now, and you can see its benefit, and it doesn't have to wait. You can give it away best and when they're in need of it most, in their 20s, for example. So it's really, when money is taboo and you can't talk generationally about money, as long as you're not talking about yourself and say, I need it. These people, these young people need it. And let's organize this. Let's have good conversations about money. Let's talk to our parents. Let's make it radically transparent And it's been really cool. All of a sudden, I'm having conversations that I never had before.
And I think that's also some of these advanced strategies with 529s. That's a great conversation for you to have with your financial professional. If you are working with a professional, they can probably give you so many more and allow you to think through some of those things. So Patricia, you have started us with the basics. You have helped people out that just want to get started with $25, even possibly before their kid is born, all the way through how beneficial and how expansive 529 plans are now. And then we reached this recent conversation we had about all these advanced strategies that you can use with 529 plans. So this has been great. So this is your tutorial. This is your idea starter for 529 plans. You can start with something so small, but the idea is to get started, and it's okay to do it along with your retirement savings. Just small amounts, decide how much makes sense to you, and just go from there. But Patricia, this has been wonderful. Where can people find you, and where can they get your book?
Okay, so the book Route 529 is on Amazon. People can find me, my email address if anybody needs me directly, patricia@giftofcollege.com. I work at giftofcollege.com if you want to look at that website. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if you look up Patricia Roberts and 529, you're going to find me. And I'm also on Instagram at Route, ROUTE 529mom. I'm everywhere talking about this, and I'm leaving no stone unturned. And this has been such a beautiful experience today. I'm so grateful to get to know you better and to share what I know with your audience.
The interesting thing is we don't talk about this enough. Like, we don't talk about HSAs enough. I'm getting Jackie to write her book on HSAs. You've got the 529 book. Jackie needs the HSA book. These are accounts that are really powerful, but like you said, only 10% of people actually utilize them. We need to get the word out there. We hope that you take this word to your friends and family, and that this podcast achieves your goal as well.
And we will catch you next time on Catching Up to 5. So, Bill, as you know, we cannot do this show without our amazing staff and the people that help us put this on. And our editor is Fritz Brazard. We love them, and they keep us going.
Yeah, Jackie, I mean, this show wouldn't have the quality it has without our folks, our peeps. And we'd also like to give you a few calls to action for the show. We love our community, and we hope you love us back. If you would like to support the show and our mission to help late starters, you can do that at Buy Me a Coffee, which is a platform that allows you to make a donation. The link is in the show notes and on the website.
Check out the show notes for resources mentioned in today's show. Also, head on over to our website at catchinguptofy.com and check out our vetted resources, partners, and affiliates for discounts and their services, because we love sharing great deals.
Please share the show with others and head on over to our Facebook community to help us grow. If you prefer video, head on over to YouTube and watch the show there. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Catching Up to 5. We would appreciate it if you could also leave us a 5-star review to help our message reach others.
And while we are financial educators that love to teach, remember that our content is for general education and information purposes only. We are not providing financial, legal, or tax advice. Always do your own research or consult a professional before making important decisions.
So, Jackie, we'll see our audience next time on Catching Up to 5. Cheers.